In recent years, Atlus has gained a reputation as being one of the modern kings of RPGs. They've got Persona, they've got Shin Megami Tensei, they've got Attack on Titan Humanity in Chains, which is not an RPG, but I just figured out it existed, and I think it's weird. Anyway, they've got some big RPG series under their belt, so when they decided to make a platforming puzzle game in 2011, I imagine it came as a shock to a lot of people. But that's not the weird part. No, what's truly strange about Catherine is literally everything else, so I want to talk about it, because I think this game might actually deserve far more attention than it gets. So let's take a look back at Catherine. Okay, yep, this is going to be wild. When we're in the main menu, we're greeted by the narrator, voiced by Sojiro, before becoming Sojiro.
Enjoy our story by taking control of our tormented main character.
And he's here to be somewhat of a guide throughout the game. Starting the game, we're shown the intro to a TV show, I think. And we meet the host of the show, Trisha, voiced by Chie, after being Chie, but before becoming Wakaba.
Good evening. Welcome to the Golden Playhouse.
So, if I'm understanding this right, we are watching the story of this game through a TV show, but are also controlling it, so already I'm confused. Regardless, we then meet our main character Vincent Brooks, voiced by Kanji after being Kanji.
Sorry, I had to work early this morning.
And his girlfriend Catherine, spelt with a K. So they should probably fire the guy that named the game Catherine with a C. Also, she's voiced by Yukari after being Yukari, but before being Kawakami.
You know, you've been a little out of it lately. Is everything alright? You've been spacing out left and right.
Naturally, the next thing we see is Vincent with horns being forced to climb a tower or else he'll fall and die. Naturally. He makes it and wakes up just a teensy bit confused, but can't seem to remember what happened properly. Next we see that Catherine might want a bit more from her relationship with Vincent, meaning she wants to get married, while Vincent himself is seemingly apprehensive when it comes to the idea of marriage. In the next scene we meet Vincent's friends, Toby, voiced by Makoto after being Makoto and Yosuke.
Oh yeah? Yeah, I want a woman who's, mature, stern, has a nice pair of heels.
Whoa, man.
And Johnny. Vincent voices his concerns over marrying Catherine before he's told that someone he knew died in a mysterious way. But he moves on pretty quick because once all his friends are gone, he meets another girl and they seem to hit it off. The scene ends and fuck, we're here again. This is probably a good time to explain the gameplay. As you've probably guessed, we're going to be here quite often, every night in fact. In a nightmare, there's multiple stages you'll have to pass each night, and each stage comes down to just making your way to the top of the tower, and you do that by moving blocks and pushing them around to create a path. You've got to be careful though, because one fall and you're very dead. And to make sure you become very dead, the blocks beneath you are slowly falling throughout the climb, so if you're not quick enough, then bye bye. This creates such a surprisingly fun gameplay loop, because the game forces you to think quickly to create paths to the top, but the actual building and climbing mechanic is incredibly unrestrictive. There's no gravity, which allows for loads of different possible combinations and paths to be created, but at the same time there is gravity, because if you push a certain block, all the blocks above it will move down, which can lead to you getting crushed by a block above you, like it's a giant fucked up game of Jenga. The nightmare stages are also constantly being switched up throughout the game. There are ice blocks, which are the bane of my existence, spike blocks, bomb blocks, big slow blocks, spring blocks, big killer sheep, and so on and so forth. There's also several items to help you through the game, so the game never lets you get too comfortable before it throws something new at you. And I want to say this now, I did put the game on easy, but that's not because I'm bad. It's because I needed to get through the game quicker for the video, okay? Okay. Anyway, Vincent climbs to the top and we see a lot more talking sheep than last time. And that's because these sheep are actually other people experiencing the same nightmare. This is where Vincent learns that if he dies in the dream, he dies in real life, so he has no choice but to climb. Where we are currently is the landing, which is the area between each stage. Here you can save your game, talk to other sheep, which will allow you to learn new climbing techniques and potentially gain more insight into the characters, as some familiar looking sheep might show up at some point.
There was a hot lady in here. Maybe I'd be doing better. Even if there was one, she'd be a sheep. Come on, it's times like this when you need some eye candy to take your mind off things.
Did he just admit to wanting to fuck sheep?
Whoa, man.
You'll eventually be able to buy items here using the coins you get in your climb as well, and last but not least, if you enter this confessional booth, you can get to the next stage. Before that, however, you're asked a question, but I'll circle back around to that in a bit. Continuing to the next stage, you'll see that other sheep are now climbing with you. Some are in the background, climbing their own towers, and you can sometimes see them fall, which is really fucked up if you think about it. And some are on your tower, right in your way. So you kind of have to push them out the way, or if you're an actual psychopath, you can make them fall to their deaths. But hey, every man for himself, right? At the end of each night, you'll encounter a boss of some sort, with it taking the shape of Vincent's fears, and it changes to a different fear every night. We later learn that each person sees their own fear in the nightmare, so maybe that's a clue as to why all these guys are in here. No, probably not though. Regardless, Vincent climbs to the top and escapes the nightmare and is able to wake up to find that he slept with the blonde girl and has now cheated on Catherine. So yeah, I guess they really hit it off. The cutscene that plays shows that this girl seems to have the same views as Vincent when it comes to marriage and would hate to be held down by it. We'll later learn that the girl's name is also Catherine but spelt with a C, so that explains the game's name. They should probably unfire that guy. But anyway, to avoid confusion, I'll call this Catherine K Catherine and this one C Catherine. I mean, it's like slightly less confusing, right? Also, C Catherine is voiced by Rise after being Rise. C Catherine leaves Vincent and goes to meet up with another friend named Orlando, voiced by Akihiko after being Akihiko.
All that stuff about soulmates and eternal love is bullshit.
Vincent tells him that he cheated and lets it slip that C Catherine is exactly his type. The rest of his friends are told about C Catherine at the bar, and we meet Vincent's last friend, Erica, voiced by Chie after being Chie while still being Trisha but before being Wakaba.
Huh? What? You're cheating! Weren't you talking about marriage?
Who should also have her own route in the game, but whatever. She tells them about a rumour going around where something called woman's wrath targets cheating men. This rumour is later expanded on more, as more men keep dying, and we come to understand that cheating men or men who feel guilty over something related to women are seemingly put into the nightmare and must climb or they die. We get to explore the bar now, which is a hub area of sorts. Here you can talk to your friends and other people, as some of these men may end up in a nightmare later, and the only way to save them may be to talk to them both in and out of the nightmare to hear their problems and give them confidence to go on. You can also drink your sorrows away, and surprisingly this has actual gameplay function. You can drink up to 3 glasses of alcohol, and then the more you drink, the faster you move in the nightmare. I have no idea how that works, your guess is as good as mine. Finishing a glass will also give you an insight into what Vincent is thinking, and the narrator man will even give you some trivia on whatever drink you choose. Oh, speaking of which, here's some Catherine trivia now that you've made it this far into the video. Did you know that in Persona 3 Portable, which released a few years before Catherine, you can find Vincent drinking while talking about strange dreams? You probably knew that. Anyway, you can drink with friends or at the bar, which is where you'll meet the bartender simply named Boss, who is voiced by Persona 5 Igor, before being both Persona 5 Igor and the SIU director.
A woman's guess is much more accurate than a man's certainty, to pinch a phrase from a certain someone.
He basically just gives you advice on woman problems and gives you a drink when you need it. Hey look, a Persona reference. The last big thing that can happen in the bar is receiving texts from either K Catherine or C Catherine, and you can actually reply to them, and I really like how it's done. You have 2 or 3 sentences to choose from per line and can form a full message using these different lines, and how you respond to a message affects this meter on the right hand side. And this is why I think both the best and most flawed aspect of the game is established. So, Catherine has a total of 8 endings, which is quite a lot, and the way you achieve these endings depends on choices you make throughout the game, like how you answer messages. The way you answer a message will force the meter to lean either right or left, the right representing order and K Catherine's route, while the left represents freedom and C Catherine's route. You can also go into the bathroom to look at certain images from C Catherine if you want to. Hey look, a Persona reference. Anyway, the game then wants you to decide which route you would choose for Vincent. Do you have him learn to move past his doubts and fully commit himself to K Catherine, the woman he already knows he loves despite how scary it may be? Or do you commit to C Catherine, who shares the same views as him when it comes to marriage and will allow him to explore a side of life he secretly longs for where he doesn't feel chained down? It is truly up to you and your own personal views and philosophy, and that's where those confessional boost questions come in. On the way to the next area, a mysterious voice, voiced by Makoto after being Makoto and Yosuke, but while still being Toby, will ask you a question.
But before I kill you, I want to determine your life's worth. So, I'll have you answer my question.
It's a different question each time, and these questions are really aimed at you, the player. Side note, I was pleasantly surprised when I answered a question but then had to go back to a previous save, only to discover that the question I answered was now a completely different question, meaning all the questions are randomized. I just thought that was cool. Anyway, the game is asking you what you would choose, and your answer again decides which way the meter goes. So the game wants you to choose which path Vincent takes based on your own beliefs and morals. But that's also where the problems come in, because the game can also be very black and white when it comes to questions and messages. When presented with the answers to the mysterious voices questions, you can pretty easily tell which rope leads to which path. The more inherently selfish ones are obviously for C. Catherine, while the more inherently selfless ones are for K. Catherine. And that's not me saying being selfish is the wrong choice, the game never punishes you for doing it, because being selfish is sometimes the right thing to do in life. However, you may end up just choosing whatever answer you want based on what goal you prefer, which isn't really what Atlas were going for. To be fair, there is the occasional question that's actually tricky, like this cheating one, which wasn't as clear cut, but most are very simple. The message options are also more often than not just be mean to K. Catherine or be nice. There's not much in between except for like the occasional third option. So a lot of players obviously won't want to be an asshole and would choose the nice options even though they may prefer what C. Catherine's path has to offer. But you could also argue that works in the game's favour, as players who desire the idea presented by C. Catherine's route will be forced to be more of an asshole to K. Catherine. Which would be harder but could also be seen as more realistic, because if you're in a situation like this and you know what you have isn't what you want, then it's usually very difficult to try and leave what you have and will often be a very messy situation. But ultimately being selfish may be the right thing to do, as your own happiness is just as, if not more important than other people's. Now that doesn't mean you should go around being an asshole to anyone and everyone, but sometimes the harder choices in life are the right ones, and I think the game can reflect that very well, but I just wish that the overall options were a bit more nuanced and forced you to think outside the box a bit more. Now, despite me thinking that the questions and answers could be less black and white, I still believe that the game does an incredible job at forcing you to question your own beliefs and morals through the story. Before I get into my own experience with this, I should confess that I have already played Catherine before. I know, I'm a fraud, I get it, okay? Last year I played Catherine full body in PS4, and I ended up going down the K. Catherine route because I believed that was the right thing to do. So I pretty much expected to think the exact same thing when going into my playthrough of Catherine Classic, but I didn't. And I think it's because now, a year later, after experiencing so much more in my personal life and growing and changing due to those experiences, I realised that there is no right option, and what made me realise was this very specific cutscene. After going through the nightmare again, Vincent has met up with K. Catherine in a cafe, and we get more insight into both of their characters. K. Catherine is someone who desires full commitment, marriage and such, which is great for her, but Vincent is in a position where he doesn't fully know what he wants yet. And then has this bomb dropped on him when K. Catherine tells him she might be fucking pregnant. And now suddenly, this man who was already unsure of what to do has been told he's going to be a dad. This is also when we see how controlling K. Catherine may be, as she chastises him for spending his money on a new phone and laptop, saying he has to save it for the baby, and that he has to stop smoking, and must act a certain way. And it was at this point I began to question whether the K. Catherine path was the right path, as Vincent clearly didn't know what he wanted but was being forced down a specific road by someone else. So I began to question if C. Catherine's route would be better, as he would have the freedom he may need there.
How do I put this? I'm kinda jealous of you. You seem to live however you want.
What do you mean? That's normal, isn't it? Vincent, you can live however you want, too.
But then I remembered, oh wait, he's having a child, he can't just leave them, so I actually sat there like, what the fuck am I going to do, because Vincent doesn't know what he wants and is feeling trapped by the idea of settling down, so maybe he'd be happy with C. Catherine, but he's also having a baby, so maybe I should focus on trying to get him to love what he has, and I really had no idea what to do. So I think a game about climbing a Minecraft tower with sheep actually being able to make me question my own convictions and what I would do in this situation is nothing short of incredible. After this revelation, we carry on like usual, except now I'm trying to take on a more neutral route, because I was still trying to figure out what to do. Vincent runs into the sheep, and there's nothing particularly important about him. I just wanted to point out that he's voiced by Yu Naokami after being Yu Naokami and Adachi.
But this curse is nothing compared to their... I escaped from hell.
After the fourth night, I was greeted by what I think is one of the weirdest character interactions I've ever seen in a game.
Oh, really? It's not from another girl, is it, Vincent?
No, why would you say that?
You know, because if it is, I'm going to die right here.
Hey, knock it off with all the dying stuff, okay?
Then I'll kill you. I die, or I kill you. Which would be better?
Come on, whoa. Ah!
Fine, I'll give you 5 seconds. If you don't answer me, I'll kill you. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey, come on. Quit fooling around.
5.
There's no other girl! Alright, you're imagining things.
Is that the truth?
Of course it is.
What is happening? Now, I don't want to cover every aspect of the story because there's so much of it and I think everyone should experience it themselves. But I do want to cover the ending I got, because if you weren't convinced that this is one of the strangest games ever made, this will definitely change your mind. But there's going to be giant spoilers for the final arc of the game, so jump to this time if you don't want to hear me lose my mind. So, despite me trying to stay neutral, I still ended up leaning towards Kay Catherine a tiny bit more, so I got an ending revolving around her, but not quite as revolved around her. I don't know, man, there's 8 of these things, I don't know how to explain them all. It all starts with Vincent breaking off with C. Catherine. She cries, he apologises, she says she's gonna die and then beats the shit out of Vincent, so a pretty normal breakup overall. Hey look, a Persona reference. Vincent wakes up alone without having a nightmare for the first time, then Kay Catherine knocks on the door wanting to talk, when suddenly C. Catherine shows up out of nowhere behind Vincent, and then they're all sitting around awkwardly, but then C. Catherine starts going on about how in love her and Vincent are, naturally leading to an argument between C. Catherine and Kay Catherine, which leads to Kay Catherine trying to find a knife in the sink, but C. Catherine already has it, and attacks Kay Catherine, who defends herself and ends up stabbing C. Catherine, who then dies. She starts freaking out, so Vincent fucking slaps her and tells her to leave so he can deal with it all, but when he opens the door, they're in the fucking nightmare world and get chased by a demonic C. Catherine. So you then get a level with Kay Catherine where you can tell her to stop and follow you like it's Resident Evil 4.
Wait.
She got in my way several times and almost died, but we make it to the end. She has doubts about the future, Vincent apologises and promises to be there for her, and then Vincent wakes up again, because that was actually a dream, and Kay Catherine is there waiting for him to wake up. Where she reveals that she knew he was cheating. Vincent says he's going to support her and the baby, which is when she says,
Listen, it turns out I wasn't pregnant.
What?
A mistake?
Yes.
I mean, are you sure?
So let's break up.
What? So she breaks up with Vincent, who gets all sad. We then cut to him talking to Orlando when he realises that all of C. Catherine's contact information is gone, like it never existed. Orlando then drops a bombshell on us and Vincent.
I used this phone to call her yesterday. We met, split, and that was that.
Yesterday, where was that?
What do you mean, where? At the bar. Where else? You guys were watching.
We saw it?
Yeah.
I didn't see anything.
What the fuck are you talking about? You saw me with her!
Huh? With who?
After that mess with her, you guys came by and tried to cheer me up, remember? You don't remember that?
Yeah, I remember that part. But all I saw was you looking pathetic by yourself.
By myself?
Yep.
But she was with me, right?
I said I didn't see her. Hell, I never even saw her once.
So at this point, Vincent feels like he's going crazy, and I feel like I'm high. Vincent's then at the bar trying to figure out what's going on when he remembers that C. Catherine talked to someone else the night they met, so someone else must have seen her, and he realises it was actually Boss who spoke to her. So he confronts Boss about it, who says that he did indeed talk to C. Catherine, and see Vincent with her when they broke up. He then says something about normal people not being able to see her, and mentions being impressed that Vincent survived as long as he did. Vincent grills him on this, and finally Boss reveals that he is behind everything, but I'll just let the cutscene play out so I don't have to try and explain it.
Who the fuck are you?
Please, stop.
You're dealing with a desperate man now. Thanks to you and your bullshit, Catherine and I are through! So explain yourself, you fucking monster!
Allow me to introduce myself. I, Thomas Mutton, am... Okay. To sum it up, when there are people like you who spend a long amount of time with a partner without commitment, it impedes the population model. The rate of population growth is less than optimal.
What the hell are you talking about?
So, I have these hesitant gentlemen climb that.
Wait, you're talking about the nightmare? Oh, you're the one behind that?
Who the hell are you?
I have been given many names by humans since ancient times. Wasting a woman's time of greatest fertility is a hindrance to the future of the species. So we separate these non-fruitful couples and redistribute the women to men who can follow the natural order, you see?
Okay, so what? You're just killing men who have a partner that they don't want to marry? Is that it?
Well, to put it bluntly...
He also reveals that C. Catherine is a succubus who's meant to take the form of a guy's perfect girl in order to have the guy cheat on his partner with her, which would instigate a breakup between him and his partner. Vincent makes a good point.
In the end, what am I guilty of? If the girl doesn't exist, then it's not cheating.
And challenges Boss and says that if he wins, then the nightmare has to end once and for all, and he gets to see K. Catherine again. Boss agrees, then dips. Erica seems to have a thing for Vincent, so why doesn't she have a root in the game? It's my final time in the bar, so I decide to play some music. Hey look, a Persona reference. Vincent goes into the nightmare, and we get through the final few stages, confront Boss who pulls out a revolver, which doesn't seem fair, beat him, except not really because there's a second phase, so we go through the most intense and ridiculous level in the game. Beat Boss for real this time. Vincent wakes up and meets K. Catherine at the bar and chooses to be completely honest with her.
It was all an illusion.
Huh? What was?
My cheating.
Huh?
Smooth. Orlando and Johnny come to the rescue though, as well as Boss, and she's convinced Vincent is telling the truth. Somehow. He says he loves her and proposes, to which she says she'll consider it basically. A few months later and they've decided to get married. Roll credits, happy ending. I come off the game and play Persona 4 Arena. Okay, never mind, I'm forced to sit here and take in everything that just happened and come to the conclusion that Catherine is indeed a great game. And that's pretty much everything I wanted to say about Catherine. It's... wait. What's... oh, right, yeah. Atlas did the Atlas thing. That Atlas thing I'm referring to is giving one of their games the Persona treatment, where they release the original version of the game, and then a few years later they release an enhanced version of the game, which fixes problems from the original game and adds a bunch more content. And so in 2019, Catherine Full Body was released, and it's... really good. The changes and additions aren't anything too crazy, with some small gameplay tweaks, new difficulty option, new game modes, which is pretty neat. The biggest changes are that we have whole new endings and story content for K. Catherine and C. Catherine, and the biggest change is a whole new character named Rin. You'll never guess what Rin is short for. Yep. Rin's whole deal is that she's lost her memory, which is oddly familiar. And she also has her own route, meaning Vincent can now choose her instead of K. Catherine and C. Catherine. But for some reason, Erica still doesn't have a route. Even though they could have given her one instead of making a whole new character, but whatever. Anyway, the Rin stuff is cool, but suffers from the problem that all Atlas re-releases have, where the big new character can often feel kind of forced into the story. I mean, naturally, taking an already established story and shoving a whole new character with their own story in can get a bit messy, but Atlas is getting better at it. Rin, however, is very inconsistent in this regard. Not as bad as Marie's inclusion in Persona 4 Golden, but not as good as Kasumi's inclusion in Persona 5 Royal, just very inconsistent. Due to this, I think the story of the original Catherine is definitely superior, as it just flows smoother without having to deal with the completely unoptional story additions. But gameplay-wise, Full Body is obviously superior, so whichever version you choose is up to you. I personally think the original Catherine is an overall more well-rounded experience, but Full Body definitely has its benefits. Okay, and a quick side thing, I'm not sure how well I'm remembering this, but I don't want to look it up because I really want it to be true, but there was something about Rin and aliens in Full Body, and I can't remember what it was. I don't know if it was she was an alien, or there was something about aliens. I just thought I'd mention that I'm pretty sure aliens are in Full Body. Because, yeah, that might as well happen at this point. It should go without saying at this point that Catherine is a very, very strange game, but that's also what makes it one of the most memorable games I've ever played. Just the fact that they don't hold back at all and have no problem being as out there as possible in order to explore some genuinely fascinating topics, such as self-worth and how happiness means something different to each and every individual person. Whether it's settling down and starting a family with someone, or staying right where you are and enjoying the present to its fullest. If you have an idea of what it would take for you to be truly fulfilled in life, then you should just go for it. It doesn't matter what other people think, because you are in charge of your life, no one else. So you should always stay true to yourself and remember that your own happiness is what's most important. And I think the fact that I managed to learn a lesson like that from this funny sheep game is just amazing.
All right. Time to go.
Oh, yeah, and before I forget, there's also Persona 5 DLC in Full Body. I haven't played it myself, but it looks pretty cool, and... Wait, if Joker's in the nightmare, that means he feels guilty over something revolving around women. So, does that mean that this is... Wait, is this canon? No. Oh, but no. Oh well. Oh, and speaking of Persona 5, is that a Catherine reference?
It's her fault I'm going through all this. She's got to fucking exist.